Hello all, and welcome back for another walkthrough video. Today we're taking a look at the beautiful combat ships submitted for the April build event. If you want to vote on your favorite or get involved in future events, feel free to head over to my Discord. Link for that is in the description. So, the April prompt was to build a large grid combat ship. It had to be 20,000 PC or less and have no mods. This means that all submissions can be used on most servers. However, this is absolutely not a claim that any of the builds are optimal or even good for most servers. This is simply a friendly build event where people get together to share their ideas and get a little inspiration. So please be considerate of that in your comments. The first ship I want to take a look at here is the April. This is my submission for the event. The rest of them I'm just going to look through in the order that they were submitted, but I wanted to give you a good baseline with my ship for all the different stats I want to cover for each of the other ships. First thing I want to look at is the PCU and block count. The April is 19,903 PCU with 2,070 blocks. It is comprised about half and half of heavy armor and light armor, probably a little bit more light armor. The heavy armor is all positioned around critical components and in the direction that you want to be putting your enemy in. So all across the front of the ship is all heavy armor, and around the main core blocks is heavy armor, around the jump drives, around the hydrogen tanks, things like that. I wanted to do a little bit of both heavy armor and light armor to get a compromise between durability and maneuverability. For weapons on the April, I decided to go for quite a bit of variety. Usually I keep it down to like 2 or 3 different types of guns maximum, but I really wanted this to be kind of a jack-of-all-trades warship. So I have 6 artillery cannons on the front, just like so. I decided to go for those instead of railguns because I figured there'd be a lot of railguns, and yeah, there's a lot of railguns on all the other ships, so I decided not to do it. I do think railguns are pretty strong, but you can fire the artillery cannons a little bit more often, so that's what I went for. In addition to the forward-facing guns, we have tons of turrets. We have 5 artillery turrets, 2 on each drive pod, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, same on the other side, and then 1 right here. We have assault cannon turrets. We have 5 of those, 2 on the left, 2 on the right in the same fashion, and 1 on the bottom there. We also have Gatling turrets, 1 Gatling there, 1 there, and 1 on the other side, so 3 total of those. And we have 6 interior turrets, which are kind of scattered about in various places on the hull, where players might want to fly in, or missiles might be striking, meteors might be, you know. It's basically the interior turrets are defense against players, missiles, and meteors. And that's good to have kind of full coverage between those and the Gatling turrets, which I also have set up to shoot those 3 things. They shoot other things too, the Gatlings, but they do shoot players and small things like that in addition. Another bonus to all of my guns is that I set up my ship in such a way that without looking entirely like a wedge, it is basically a wedge. Every single one of the guns can fire on a target that is directly in front of you. The further you get away, the easier time they have targeting because the stuff in front of them is out of the way more. But at some point at around 400 meters, 500 meters, every single turret has clear line of sight forwards. Not including the interior turrets, of course, but those aren't set to shoot at anything but players and whatnot, so we don't worry about those. In addition to all of the turrets, I decided that this ship needed to have some of the new AI-guided hydrogen missiles. These have warheads on them, and I can reprint them in survival. So every 40 seconds or so, with 3 times welder speed, that's what most servers run at, I feel like. That's like the default. So every 40 seconds I can print up new guided missiles, release them, they will thrust forwards, and then lock onto a target, chase it down, and detonate when they get close enough. There are 4 of these missile printers total, 2 on the top, and then 2 right on the bottom. Another thing that kind of falls into combat blocks is decoys. I do have decoy blocks on this ship. They don't really work great for saving you from weapon fire, but they do work as lightning rods. So I have decoys. I have 1 right underneath here. I have 3 decoys on this ship. 1 there, 1 mirrored on the other side, and I have 1 right in the back here that is, I think it's right about underneath this block, and it has a welder set up to re-weld it anytime it gets damaged, so there's no way that lightning is ever going to be striking anything important on this ship. which I always think is nice. The next thing I want to do is a quick walkthrough of the ship. Now, this ship in particular basically has no interior, but we can take a closer look on the outside, and I can show you how I have things set up. Right here is where I would normally attach to a station in space, and you can walk up here. I do have gravity and whatnot. So even on my own grids, I want to give a little bit of criticism for some things, and my criticism, my main one for this build, is that it doesn't really have an interior. I planned out this whole thing. I designed all of the tightly packed working components, and I had plans to have an interior, but then I'm like, wait, I have all this extra space. I could totally put a full-size refinery in here and make it a fully functioning base. And of course, I did that without thinking about it twice. And when I finally got around to being like, hey, maybe I should put an interior in this, well, all my interior space was taken up with jump drives and other things. So I'm not particularly happy with how you have to walk around on this vehicle, but it is functional. You can get onto it from docked at a station right here, and you can climb up it if you land on the ground. There is a ladder here that you can go up. I'm not actually going to use the ladder because they're miserable, but you can go up here. This also gives you access to my mini antenna setup here, because I don't really particularly like using the big ones. But yep, you go up here. This just takes you all the way up to the top, right where you would walk in from this staircase. From here you can walk around on the surface. It's not wonderful, but it's doable. And this is your entrance to the main part of the ship, which is basically a tiny nook. This is in fact airtight, even though the door is open, because this window block is totally broken, and it lets you make a key and lock there. So secure with the door and airtight with the window, as all things should be. Don't actually need my light on in here because it is lit. This is the entire interior of the ship. There is actually interior space up front, but you have to get to it through a access point up there, and it's basically just for maintenance of a lot of the interior blocks. We've got our main medical kit here. I do have 2 backup medical kits in the front and backup control seats in the front. I'll show you those in a little bit. In case you do get blasted out of this and that gets taken out, you can respawn at one of the other ones and take control of the ship. The ship, the normal view from sitting in the control seat is going to be like this. There is not a view, a first-person view, but we do have cameras set up, and there are cameras facing every direction on this ship. The forwards-facing one is somewhat fortified behind a window and surrounded by heavy armor, so hopefully it won't get taken out. There is a backup lower one, but it's kind of behind a turret, so that's not particularly great. Something else I didn't really mention about this ship yet is that this is entirely DLC free. So this is a truly 100% vanilla ship. No DLC, no mods, no scripts. I wanted to give myself an extra challenge on this build. I don't know why, but I did. So yeah, this is the pure vanilla ship. So that's the interior there. I guess I can go up and show you the crawl space. Get ready to cringe. So this is the access point for the crawl space here. Of course, I time it right when the doors are auto closing. You can get up, you can do maintenance on various different parts, and these are those backup respawn points and control seats I was talking about. You also have a bunch more crawl space between things. It also kind of just is some spacing between the armor so that the armor doesn't propagate damage inwards towards the squishy blocks. And I guess I can also kind of show you from in here how the armor is heavy armor around critical stuff and then light armor when it's not directly touching or next to critical components, which is kind of nice. And the other side over there, of the other side of the crawl space, is pretty much the same. So we're not going to go across there. We got to get out of here. It hurts my brain, the fact that I did that, but it's a combat ship. The more interior space you have, I figure, the more hull you're going to have. And the more hull you have, the more weight you're going to have to carry around. So I went for minimal interior space. But then at the same time, I put full production on the vehicle, which you don't really need to carry around for a combat ship either. I suppose it's nice though. I do have a full refinery with all of the attachments, and I have 3 assemblers, one with double speed modules and 2 with no modules on it. And I also have a drill and a little camera so you can control the grill, and a light. And this is on a piston, so this extends out so you can do some mining if you need to do some repairs, or if you just want to mine. The thing I would use this for most is mining ice, so I can refuel my ship with hydrogen, because this is a 100% hydrogen thruster ship. So you definitely need ice, and this way the ship can refuel itself. And it can do that in space or on a planet, because it has enough thrust to be lifting off in that direction on a planet if you really want to. That is going to be it for the walkthrough. Let's take this on a quick flight test, and then we will go through a few more of the blocks and just see what's what. It is fairly quick. I'm going to be testing all of these ships with completely empty inventories, so take the flight test with a grain of salt, because in reality, if you're playing in survival or something, you are pretty much never going to have a completely empty inventory. Especially for this ship. I did do a ton of testing with a relatively full inventory because I do need materials to reprint my missiles, but it feels very good to fly for being quite a heavy ship actually. It's another good stat we should probably look at. It is 2.5 million kilograms, which is quite a bit, and you can actually see that minus the missile setup, it's only 1,500-ish PCU, which is kind of cool. Let's take this down to a planet and test it there. And here we are in the dunes of Pertam, the most hostile environment for any flying ship in the vanilla game. Gravity is horrible, sandstorms are permanent, and we are flying just fine. I can slow down real quick here. See how far forwards I can actually tilt. I know on Earth I can face pretty much straight down. I think I actually can face straight down. I do have these 3 large thrusters. But on Pertam... Alright, we're starting to slip now, but it is relatively slowly. I can almost face straight down, so if I'm going to engage a base on the ground, I can face pretty much all of my turrets directly at it and fight it that way. If we are stable like this, we have quite a lot of thrust in the upwards direction, more than any other direction, with those 3 large thrusters and the full banks of small ones. And even on Pertam, our vertical acceleration is pretty darn good. And of course we can face straight up because we have 4 large thrusters. So I can just sit my ship like this very comfortably. So we have quite a bit of maneuverability on both the planet and in space with this vehicle. It doesn't whip around super fast, but it whips around very comfortably. The right speed for a ship this size, I would say. The last thing we are going to do here with every ship is we're going to open up the inventory and we're going to look for specific blocks just to see if the ship has them. We're going to look for jump drives. We're going to look for a safe zone block. We're going to look for decoys, and of course my favorite thing to check is parachutes. So we're going to see if the ships have parachutes. The April here does indeed have parachutes. I can show you that. We'll just turn our inertial dampeners off and pop our parachutes. Look at that. Even on Pertam, we're getting down to about, can I get down to 12 meters per second? It's usually a pretty comfortable landing, and we're going to land pretty much level. Unfortunately, we will lose some of the artillery turrets on the bottom, but we will be able to fly away pretty comfortably from a crash like this because we have parachutes. Parachutes are not important for ships that have no plans on going to planets, but for any ship that can fly on a planet, I do think it is a good measure to have. Even just a couple to slow yourself down, then you don't lose your whole ship. But yeah, we're going to look for those blocks, starting with, we're going to convert to a station because the April here does have a safe zone. Safe zones are nice if you want to park somewhere and be safe. It's kind of self-explanatory, but yeah, I definitely think they're worth having on a combat ship because then you can just post up somewhere and show off your ship, or just let them know that your presence is an issue, potentially for them. Now I have the safe zone block on this ship perfectly centered more or less, so that I can cover the entire ship in my safe zone and not have excessive safe zone area, so it really doesn't take up that much power to run mine. You won't be able to see how much power it's taking until it actually turns on, but it's a little bit more than one small reactor worth, so it's like 17 megawatts or something like that. The April, of course, does have decoys. It has a refinery with full modules. It has assemblers. Jump drives, it has 2 of those. I like having 2 in case one gets shot out, or so that I can jump more frequently during battle. It's a really nice thing to have. Or set one up to jump like 5 kilometers, another one to jump like 10, and that can be super useful in a battle as well, especially for a ship like this where I'm going to be probably trying to outrange them, strafe them and outrange them, and launch my guided missiles at them as much as possible, because I should be able to engage them from further than any other guns can fire with my missiles. So having the extra jump drives are really nice. Oh, quick fun fact before we switch to another grid. I was actually doing all of that testing with a relatively full player inventory in creative. So the actual grid mass of the ship is 2.25 million kilograms. And yeah, it flies even better. Now, I'm on Pertam, and like a little bit less mass, I can tip a little bit further, and my acceleration's a little bit better. The tests you just saw were tests with the amount of gear in it that I would normally have in it. I took all the stuff out of the ship inventory, but didn't remember to take it out of the player inventory. But that'll be correct for the rest of the ships after this. Alright, we're going to be streamlining the walkthroughs, but I do know it's going to take a while, so I want to mention here that if you are interested in finding out more about the April and my whole thought process I put into building that, I'm going to have a video for that. I probably will have a separate video showing you how I set up the custom missiles. These are missiles I designed myself, and I'm going to upload those to the workshop, and I'll put out a video showing how you can get them off the workshop, set them up on your ships. If you're interested in any of that, definitely head over to my main channel and subscribe there so you get notified when those videos come out. Alright, the next ship we're going to take a look at here is the LRSA-94 Djinn. This is a ship designed by mostly AWOL, and to paraphrase what it says on the Steam Workshop, this is a long-range frigate that is capable of taking off and landing on Earth-like, but was designed primarily for deep space flight. It is completely survival ready, but it does have a few subgrids that would have to be added on after printing it up. It's only about 7 blocks though, so it's not really a big deal. For weapons, once again, the Djinn has quite a variety. It is sporting 4 forward-facing railguns. That's going to be a theme in all of the walkthroughs, so get used to it from here on out. There are also 6 assault cannon turrets, just like that, same on the other side. Boop, boop, boop. And there are 8, I believe, yes, 8 Gatling turrets, 2 on each side like that, 2 on the top, and 2 on the bottom right behind their respective assault cannons. In addition to all of those turrets, there are 19 interior turrets on this vehicle. So this one is extremely well defended against players and missiles and meteors and that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. Now, as far as I can tell, this vehicle is entirely made out of light armor. Let's look at the other stats right away. It is 18,044 PCU, is 2,017 blocks, and has a grid mass of about 1.5 million kilograms. Let's take a look a little bit around the outside, and then we'll go inside for a bit of a tour. This one actually does have an interior, so that's kind of cool. Bottom is pretty simple and straightforward. They use the nice clean armor, the weldless armor, which I think is definitely nice. I like the purple glow, also kind of a really cool feature. I think this is one of my favorite looking ships out of all of them, because it's very different from the designs you usually get, which, you know, it's always good. It's good to have a little bit of variety in your life. To get inside the vehicle, you have to come back and push this button, and a little lifting piston goes down. This, I assume, will let you get into the vehicle when you are parked on land. You can see it goes down about as low as the landing foot up there, which is kind of cool. Come back up. Now we're inside. That terrifies me to no end. If that doesn't explode before the end of this little walkthrough, I'm going to be amazed. But inside here, we've got some buttons to get the lifting piston. Oh, there's little images too. I have to take note of that. These are custom little images. Pretty cool. Come up top, we've got a cargo stuff. I did notice that this ship does not have a large cargo container. Instead, it has a ton of small ones. That is not a bad thing. That's probably a good thing for a combat ship. I didn't look at mine on the April, but mine has one large cargo, and then it has 5 or 6 distributed small cargoes. This ship has one large reactor, but it has batteries as well. So, and the batteries are distributed across the ship, I assume. I like this image. I like how the interior is also kind of, it uses a lot of the new blocks. You got the inset light and whatnot, and it's kind of an open feel. Compared to mine, mine was a nook. You're in a nook of the ship, and this one actually has a somewhat of a proper interior, and I do like that. I can appreciate it. This is a completely hydrogen thruster ship, just like mine. This one has 8 large hydrogen tanks. Mine had 4. So this one does hold a lot of fuel for being a light ship, and for being mostly intended for spaceflight. You're going to go quite a ways with this one. It's not going to run out of fuel for a very long time, which is pretty cool. Looks pretty good. It does have the exposed control area, but that is a matter of personal preference, and I would not deduct points for that. I think it's kind of cool. It looks nice. Alright, we gotta get out. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh. I don't know what just happened. That was kind of scary. Alright, we're gonna try to leave. And hopefully we don't clang explode. Oh, I don't know what's happening. I think I just got pressed like I was in a juicer. And I went flying. It worked though, with no explosions. I gotta do that again. I very much am expecting this to explode. Let's make a copy first. Alright, we have our copy. Let's push this button again and see what happens. It just teleports. Okay, that's scary, but I guess if it's not exploding, it's working as intended. There needs to be a prayer board on this ship for Clang, because yeah. Worship every day, please, or you are going to be dead trying to get in and out of your ship. Alright, let's take this one for a test flight. I'm just going to test it in space and trust that it can fly on a planet, even though it's not really intended to. It is nice and quick. Gyros are pretty comfy too. That's satisfying. And we do have a camera for that, which is good. I would say this has slightly better forwards acceleration than the April, but I think most of its acceleration is forwards and backwards. It has some up, some decent up. Honestly, it's not bad at all. It might be overall just entirely faster. It is light armor though, so that is the trade-off you're making. But it feels pretty good to fly. I would not complain about this at all. Alright, let's take a look at some of the blocks that it has on it real quick. Alright, it does not have a safe zone. It does have a jump drive. It does not have a refinery, but it has a couple assemblers. And it has decoy blocks. It has 3 decoy blocks. All the decoy blocks are right in the front of the vehicle. And I do know that there is a repair welder up there. I saw that right behind the railgun there. So I imagine that those decoys draw fire towards the nose and they get rewelded. It also has 0 parachutes. So I will give it a pass on that because they said in their description that it's meant to be mostly in space. But good to know. Let's launch these one more time. That's pretty cool. One more thing that I thought was kind of neat is the spotlights on the front here. They're behind little doors and they'll peek out and open up. Pretty cool. The next ship we're taking a look at is the Nightmare Night. This was designed by Kitsy. It is 20,194 PCU, 4,165 blocks, and about 9 1/3 million kilograms. This ship is entirely made out of heavy armor. As far as I can tell, I flew around it a little bit. That explains why it is so heavy. I'm going to guess that it's probably the heaviest vehicle out of all of them, but that is okay. It is a ship designed specifically for space warfare, so you're not going to be taking this down onto a planet. That's also perfectly fine. In the front here, for weapons, we have got 6 forward-facing railguns. They also have little doors that they're hiding behind that you can close. Kind of a neat feature. There's also a whole bunch of forward-facing cameras, lots of redundancy there, which is good. For turrets, we have 4 assault cannons, one on the top bottom here, same on the other side on the little turret module thing. And then we have 8 Gatling turrets, 2 there, 2 on the other side, 2 on the top in the back, and I do believe 2 on the bottom in the back. So pretty good coverage for Gatling turrets. There are no artillery turrets on this, and there are no interior turrets on this, but there are quite a few Gatlings, so you probably have pretty solid coverage from those. I looked through the block list already, and it does not have any decoy blocks, but that is just fine. We are going to go inside right over here, and we are going to take a little tour of the inside. This is mirrored on the other side of the ship. We'll use the airlock properly. There we go. It's very red inside and very dark. So I'm going to leave my lights on. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you to see. But you come in and you got a bit of a hub area, it looks like here. Like an airlock area. I'm going to go up first. Looks like this is the main control area. Got a little flavor text on the LCD. This ship also has kind of a neat description. If you look at it on the Steam Workshop, there's some lore to it. And this fits with the lore, which is pretty cool. Nice touch. Main control seat, I assume. And we have some blast doors in front of it, which is kind of nice to see. It's a little more fortified. And they have the windows on them too, which is kind of cool. From in here you can also see the doors in the front open up and close by the turrets. Pretty cool. And there's also blast doors on the back to cover some of the thrusters, which I don't know if I would ever use, but it's kind of a neat feature, a neat idea. If you're not going anywhere, you can cover them up and just be a stationary base, especially with a vehicle that's super heavy like this, where during combat, you're probably not going to be flying, like, you might try and fly around a bit, but you're going to be pretty stationary compared to most other vehicles. We'll take it for a test flight in a little bit, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty slow just because of how heavy it is. And judging by the number of thrusters I see right off the bat. Turn my lights back on. Let's go down. We have a very mild gravity on this vehicle. And let's go back first. It looks like it's just cargo right here. Access to cargo. We have a few survival kits right here, which is good. Moving forwards into the ship. Large room here and a very large reactor. I did look through the block list on this ship beforehand, so I'll just give you a bit of a rundown while we look at stuff. It does not have a safe zone. It has 1 jump drive. It has no production, so no refineries or assemblers. It has no parachutes, but it's not meant to be on a planet anyway. It does have 4 large hydrogen tanks, plenty of H2O2 generators to produce fuel, and along with the big reactor, it has small reactors and batteries distributed across the entire ship. It does a very good job of distributing all of the important blocks, so there's nowhere that they're all going to get taken out at the same time. I also have to say that They have a couple of these in various places for repairing thrusters and like a chunk of gyros right here. So you're never going to be without that kind of stuff. Unlikely to be without it. But what I was saying was this ship does a really good job of having a whole bunch of respawn points. So there's 3 survival kits, and I think there's 3 medical rooms. No, 2 medical rooms, but they're all spread out across the ship. And it's a pretty big ship, so there's very unlikely that you're going to have a situation where you die and you can't respawn. So this is one of the back rooms. See, we got a medical kit here. We have a way to walk inside to like repair a lot of the blocks without leaving the ship, which I think is kind of cool. You even have access to your big thruster back here. And I'm going to walk through the other side really quick, but I assume that it's going to be more or less the same. It does not have a survival kit or a medical room on this side. Oh, it does. It's just over there because it can't be exactly mirrored. Cool. And this is the jump drive. Probably slide another one of those bad boys in this ship somewhere. Let's go towards the front of the ship. Gravity generator here. Alright, so yeah, I mean there's tons of room to slam a whole bunch of more jump drives in here, and you could put a safe zone in here very comfortably. Lots of space. Let's head towards the front. We have this long corridor. I'll turn my lights off again for a second so you can get the feel. It's very dark and very red. We got a forward control seat. It's always good to have some control seats in different locations on your ship. And that one is pretty close to another survival kit, way up near the front, which is good. Look at all this room. So you actually have tons of room to do all sorts of things in here. You could build ships in here. You could put a hangar. Honestly, you could put a hangar in here if you really wanted to open up the top or put doors up at the top. Would be kind of neat. Also, interesting note, this is not a odd width ship. So the center line of the ship is 2 wide, not 1 wide. Not a lot of people build ships like that. I personally don't particularly care for building ships like that because it makes it more difficult to have center line seats and whatnot, which I really like. I think that's the entire interior for this ship, though. It's very spacious. Lots of room inside. Alright. Let's take this for a bit of a test flight. It is definitely slow, and it has... You can hear my mouse clicking as I replace it. It doesn't turn very fast, it is very slow, but it is very tanky. As a respawn point specifically, because there are so many places to respawn on this vehicle, and they're all distributed, and the entire thing's heavy armor, this would be hard to take out as a respawn point. I almost kind of like the idea of this being more of a mobile base. So if you put hangars in the top, or added a bunch of production in all that space, it would be a very solid base, because it is mobile. And I suppose you could do surprise attacks with all the rail guns on the front. I gotta make sure the doors are open, but I do want to fire those. Let's get one of the cameras. There's so many cameras, and they're not labeled, so I don't know which way they're looking. We're just gonna fire the guns. Yeah, I mean, 6 railguns is gonna tear through just about anything. Well, certainly any of the other ships that were built here. Even this ship, it'd probably tear a pretty big hole in this one. So, surprise attacks, definitely effective. And then you do have jump drives, so you could just jump out after your attack. And if somebody attacks you with all of the armor, I would like it if there's one more jump drive, because then it's really unlikely that they would kill both your jump drives in their first attack. But if someone attacks you, because it is such a durable ship, you could get out of there if you wanted, if you didn't think you could fight. Our next ship is the Warmonger. This was designed by a random gamer 8. It is 20,384 PCU, 3,775 blocks, and about 2.5 million kilograms. This build is the first to feature 4 forwards-facing missile launchers. No one else has put missile launchers on their vehicle yet, or missile turrets for that matter. So this one has missile launchers. These are behind windows, which I think is interesting. I don't know if that actually works. You'll have to let me know in the comments. I suppose I can launch them when I do the test drive too. And we do have some redundant cameras on the front for aiming those, which is good. It also has 4 artillery turrets right up top and 8 Gatling turrets. So 2 Gatling turrets on either side right on the bottom there, and then 2 on either side on the top and bottom of their drive pods. This vehicle is also kind of the first one that broadsiding would probably be your optimal way to engage somebody, simply because you'll have more turrets being able to track them at the same time. So you can get quite a few of your Gatlings and all of your big guns up top. And this is the first vehicle that is somewhat of a carrier design, in that it has 6 landing pads up on top here, and these are for carrying fighters. It has a beacon set up with it so that you can use the new AI blocks to have your fighters automatically come down and land on these pads. Let's take a look a little bit more around the outside before we go inside and tour that. I do like the overall color scheme of this vehicle. It's kind of neat. These hydrogen tanks are a bit exposed. They look cool, but they are very exposed. I checked the block list, and there are some hydrogen tanks inside, so if you do lose these, you are not completely out of your hydrogen, which is at least a good thing there. Most of the vehicle is made out of light armor. There are a few little bits here and there that are heavy armor, like these little tabs here are heavy armor, but it is almost entirely light armor, and of course these blast doors. These are pretty heavy, but it's just around the landing pad areas. Down at the bottom, I really do like the little like landing legs on this vehicle. It looks kind of cool. So it's got those, that's the entrance. We'll go in there in a little bit. On the back, we have a whole ton of thrusters. We have a combination of hydrogen and ion thrusters, just like the last one. And judging, just looking at the bottom of this with how many thrusters there are, and knowing it weighs about 2.5 million kilograms, I'm guessing this would not fly, or would not be comfortable to fly on a planet. I don't think you would actually be able to fly. We'll take that in the test flight, but my suspicion is that it won't. Alright, I don't think there's any real surprises. You can actually see inside the vehicle here. Just noticed that. Alright, let's go inside. It is very roomy inside, and we do have lights, so I'm going to turn mine off, get rid of all this nonsense, and we can have a nice clean look around. Look at all of the vents. I like these new vents, are really cool. So this is your main control area. It comes in right out of the side here. There is no airlock or anything, which is, it worries me a little bit. But you've got some scripts running, so you've got your ship over there, some ship stats here. Pretty good location for a control seat, in my opinion. And let's go up to the front here. The front is wide open still. I'm going to turn my light back on. I don't know, I kind of like it with my lights on. But you can see this is below where those landing pads are. And I assume these are stations for drone pilots. They could stand here and they could fly the little fighter ships. Up front, we have a little forwards control seat right inside there. Maybe the gunner for the missiles sits there. It looks like this is a partially completed interior, judging by the fact that they do have rooms up here, or what would have been rooms at some point. It looks like they could have had walkways going across and kind of an open feel in the middle, and then they could have closed in these side rooms, and it would have felt really nice. So hopefully they get around to completing that bit. I think it would look very nice on the inside with all of that complete. And putting some airlocks in here, maybe adding a little bit more I just looked through the menu here, and I'm going to ramble off about some of the blocks as I fly around the outside, I guess. It does not have any production, so no assemblers, no refineries. It does not have a safe zone, though there is plenty of room to add that, as well as production on the inside. It has plenty of hydrogen storage. Interestingly enough, it actually has no power production of its own and no O2H2 processing, so no way to turn ice into hydrogen of its own. So this vehicle, it runs entirely on batteries. It doesn't have hydrogen engines, it doesn't have reactors, it doesn't have solar panels anywhere. It runs on batteries, and you have to refuel at a station. So you have to refuel and recharge at a station for this one, which I thought was kind of interesting. That's not a terrible thing for combat ships in general, because if you're carrying around all the extra production and whatnot, then that's just extra weight that you don't need. But it's also kind of scary to me, because like you do have room in this vehicle to add that. So I just thought it was a different take on the entire concept, and maybe one worth considering for other people's builds. In combination with that, I do think you should take into account that this vehicle has 4 jump drives, so even though it can't actually refuel itself or produce any of its own stuff, it can get quite far, so it can be parked at a station and then jump quite far to wherever it needs to be for battle in one go. Now let's take this for a quick flight test. The acceleration is alright. Honestly, the acceleration forwards is really good, but it turns very slowly. I'm still trying to turn around here so I can see the rest of the ships. It does drift quite a bit too, with it only has a few side thrusters, a few up and a few down thrusters, certainly more up than it has a down. A heck of a lot more forwards than any other direction. It's also kind of interesting. It has the 2 big hydrogen thrusters for thrusting backwards, and then the 2 big ones for forwards, and a whole bunch of ions. Let's try out those rocket launchers, and I see the red dots. Oh, that's interesting. The red dots are not centered on the rocket launchers. And what do you know, you can shoot through windows. I'm gonna have to start using this. What the heck? That is kind of crazy. You could put heavy armor panels in front of these, I bet, because they're the same thickness as a window. That's pretty useful. I wonder if it doesn't work for armor panels. I feel like it should. If it works for windows, it should work for armor panels. Look at how far I drifted. Yeah. Well, rockets can be good. You never shoot at something that's moving slowly enough. Alright. Take this down to the planet, and then we'll move on to the next one. Alright, we're on Pertam, just to be fair. If it flies here, it'll fly anywhere else in the vanilla game. I'm not surprised. It doesn't work on a planet. At least not on this planet. Clangs really nicely, though. Let's try to paste it in to see if at least you could take off from a planet if you're facing upwards. Oh, holy moly. Yeah, no, this is not a planetary vehicle. 100%. Keep this bad boy in space. The next submission is the Celior, which was built by our craft NWS. The vehicle is exactly 20,000 PCU, which is awesome. 4,408 blocks and roughly 3 million kilograms. Now, much like the last one, it is comprised mostly of light armor, but it does have tidbits of heavy armor here and there, most notably around the drive pods back here. This is a lot of half-block heavy armor. For weapons, this one has more variety than any of the other ones so far. It does go for at least 2 of the railguns, exactly 2. In fact, one on that side, one mirrored on the other side. It has 2 artillery cannons right up top there, and 2 rocket launchers snuck right in the bottom. For turrets, it is the first vehicle to utilize the custom turret controller and to have a custom turret. That is this monstrosity up here with 6 artillery cannons and 4 rocket launchers. It does have a camera as well, so that you can aim it nicely. As far as regular turrets, it has 4 artillery cannons, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. It has 2 rocket launchers. I always call them missile launchers, but they are rocket launchers right there, and 2 Gatling turrets right on the back. There are no interior turrets on the exterior of this ship, but it does have a rather decent interior, and there are interior turrets inside. Before we check that out though, let's take a little bit more of a look around the outside. This is a classic ship shape. Call it what you like, but it is one of those ship shapes that is endlessly functional. It's always nice having the drive pods. It looks like we don't have a crazy amount of redundancy for thrusters. We have this one side thrusters here. We got the drive pods with the forwards and backwards thrust, a couple up, and let's see how many down. It does say in the workshop that this can be flown on Earth-like, but it is not recommended. So we are not going to be testing it there. We're going to take their word for the fact that it can fly on that planet if it needs to, but that's not its intended area of operation. Do have quite a bit of forwards thrust, so I'm looking forward to driving this in a straight line. Should be pretty nice. Got the connectors on the bottom here. Good to see. How are we doing for forward-facing cameras? I'm curious about that. I don't see any right off the top here. I don't really see any around the bottom. I'm hoping there are some somewhere. If all else fails though, there's a lot of flat space here. You could add in cameras for aiming those forward-facing guns. Alright, let's head inside and take a little bit of a look around. Oh, so there's a door here. There's not a door there. Oh, for a second I thought that was like a mirrored thing. This is right in the center though. Heading through this. Let's see, we have usage of the nice pipes, and here's your first interior turret. There are 2 of those. Hydrogen tank. O2H2 production. Always good. Interesting looking vent area. Coming forwards, we have our second and last interior turret. Pretty good coverage for those 2 rooms. Down here is a gyro room. Quite a few gyros. I kind of wish they were all facing the same direction, but that's a nitpicking detail that only probably bothers me. Back up top here, keep moving forwards. Use of some of the new armor types. Relatively new, at least. Here is your main control seat, and it is encased in heavy armor for a lot of extra protection. I do approve of that. You can see quite a bit. Let's fire each of the guns while we're here. Holy moly, that fires all of them. Fires the forwards ones and the ones in the custom turret, which is kind of interesting. And it looks like the rocket launcher does the same. The forwards ones and the ones in the turret get launched. Oh my gosh, and I went to take control of the custom turret. A little bit slow to move around, but hey, it gives you an option. You can look down pretty far. You can't look up super far with this, so it just gives it a little bit more range of motion in a circle around the vehicle. That's pretty satisfying though, to shoot all those at the same time. This stuff away. We're gonna move into the left side here. This looks like a bedroom of some sort. Private room, and these are those windows we saw from the outside. Anything else going on in here? On the other side, it is in fact mirrored. As far as I can tell, it's mirrored. Could add a little bit more detail in here, but there is plenty of room to add stuff. There's also a lot of room in here to add all sorts of things. You could add production, you could add a safe zone. I'm guessing this vehicle doesn't have a safe zone. We haven't looked at the blocks yet, but it is the first one that's going to make me crawl as well. Does look like this is just mirrored. And this brings me up into an engine room of sorts. Use of all the new blocks. Here's your jump drive. And you can kind of come up and look around at things. Alright, we made it through. Let's look up in the front part here. This is kind of just open space. More room to add things if you so choose. Some desks. And it looks like this is the little bubble we saw on the front. This is not actually the control room, which is probably wise for a combat vehicle, but it is kind of cool. They have somewhat of an observation deck up here, so you can kind of look around at stuff. I imagine this would be the loudest place in the ship to be during a fight, because all the turrets are around here going off, and you're probably getting shot at. Bombs are going off. I think having a door that leads into that would be not an oversight, for sure. But that's pretty much the entire interior on this vehicle. I'm going to go out and copy it, and then we'll take it for a test drive. Pretty darn good forwards acceleration, as expected. It turns a little bit faster than the last two we looked at, but definitely slower than... Let's see, it turns faster than that one, and significantly slower than the first two we looked at. So it's got okay handling as far as comparing it to the rest of the ships. Kind of middle of the road. The acceleration is better in the forwards direction than any other direction by 1,000,000 miles. I kind of wish there were more gyros so I can make use of that a little bit better. But it's not terribly uncomfortable to drive this around. I could see flying this around in combat being okay. Alright, I took a look at the blocks on this vehicle and I found some interesting things. Now, I'm not trying to be super critical here, I'm just trying to give some good feedback. Our craft, if you are watching this video, these are the things I recommend for improvements. I found that there were no medical bays on this entire ship, no survival kits, so there's no way to respawn on this ship. Definitely should add one of those. There's one hydrogen tank, that big hydrogen tank we saw when we walked in. That's the only hydrogen tank on this. It does have H2O2 generators, a whole bunch of them, so you could produce hydrogen, but you're going to need more tanks to fuel all these thrusters at maximum output. It has no batteries on the ship, which can be completely fine because it does have reactors. It has 2 large reactors and 1 small reactor, and they are kind of spread out, so it's probably fine for that. But batteries are always a good safety mechanism to spread your batteries out on the ship, and they don't have to be plugged in anything, so you can kind of spread them out really easily. There are no parachutes on this, but again, I'm going to give this ship a pass because it's not intended to be flown on the planet. Though the fact that it can be makes me think that maybe you should add parachutes. It's always a safe thing to do. There's no safe zone, but basically only I have put a safe zone on my ship so far, so apparently that's not a consideration for anyone, so no points off for that one. Also, I noticed that there is no beacon or no antenna on this craft. Now, I know a lot of people don't put those on vehicles, but I would recommend having one of those as well. Aside from that, everything else looked good. So I'm not going to go through and list all the good things. I'm just going to... Sounds unfair, but I would be here all day if I was listing good things about every vehicle. So it's a little easier to do the slight critiques of things. And those things specifically for a combat vehicle I thought were worth noting. Nonetheless, I do like this vehicle. Let's move on to the next one. That brings us to the LOFMS, which according to the Steam page is an acronym for Lots of Freaking Missiles Ship. So we'll have to check that out for sure. This was built by Game Night, and no, I did not paste this in wrong. This is actually somewhat of a vertical ship design. For stats, let's go ahead and check that right away. It is 18,113 PCU and is only 783 blocks. And this vehicle is the lightest yet, weighing in at just under 1.25 million kilograms. Looking around the outside, we can see that there is indeed a high number of rocket launchers. Looks like on every side. We can see one down there, there. It looks like maybe this ship you just are intended to fly right through the middle of a fleet and just launch rockets in every direction. Now I gotta remember not to just hop in and start launching rockets, because I'm gonna blow up the ships right next to me. But if that happens, well, here was my warning, I guess. It is entirely ion propulsion. Also, by the way, that's the first of all the ships that opted for entirely ion, which is pretty cool. So it's definitely a spacefaring ship and not intended for much else. You can also see it's got the Gatling turrets. Looks like it's got 4 of them, kind of distributed in a pretty good spread around here. Looking at the front, you can see all of them, and you're going to see at least 2 of them from pretty much wherever else you are on this vehicle, or whatever direction you're looking at it from. There is not... I suppose these turrets actually cover the back until you get fairly close, which is good. I think I would like to see an interior turret right smack dab there. That would take care of any people trying to fly in and get on the back of this vehicle. Alright. We got a door here. We got a door on the other side. These doors are nicely situated right next to some connectors. Let's go in. Okay. Very simple interior, it looks like. Do like the use of the new blocks. Cargo container covers. The door on the other side, also an airlock. I have no idea what this ramp's going to, but I'm guessing it's for the survival kit. Which is, it's kind of weird. It's situated sideways. Oh, and we have a control seat here. So when I walk into the vehicle, like gravity is this direction, very much. And I can walk up the stairs and the ladders and whatnot in this direction. So the second floor here looks like is living quarters. Flip my light off so you get the natural feel. There is no way up from here that I can see. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. So we're going to hop back down. Now the control thing, there's a ladder here, is actually facing up. So I guess when you fly the vehicle, you do fly it this way, not, you know, weirdly sideways. You do fly it like you would fly all the other ones, which I kind of like. Makes a lot of sense. But then when you actually get in and out of it, you are standing in a vertical ship design, which is a very different take on everything. Apparently, this also has a gravity drive, so we're going to have to check that out when we take this on a test flight, which I guess we are going to do right now. Now, ion thrusters have a lot less kick to them than hydrogen thrusters, but this is also our lightest vehicle yet, so it feels really good to drive around. It turns really well, plenty of gyroscopes on this, and the forward thrust is quite substantial. That in combination with being able to turn fast does mean that this is relatively maneuverable. The only ones that I would say might be more maneuverable, and this is might be, there's no guarantee, and that is the first 2 that we tested, the April and this other one here that AWOL built. Feels pretty good. Let's test out these gravity drives. I believe it is number 9 here on the keyboard, which will turn them on. Ooh. Yeah, look at my speed just shot up there. I'll turn those off. That is pretty intense. We'll do that facing this way. Feels pretty good. Let's use it in combination with... Well, actually, if we just leave it on, right? We don't actually have to push forwards anymore because our gravity drives are pushing us forwards. But what if we use it and the thrusters? Alright, we're going to thrust forwards and hit 9. Let's see how fast we can get to 100. Dang. Pretty darn fast. We're going to do this again, just because it's so satisfying watching it go so quickly. And we'll already do 100. That's pretty crazy. Alright, enough of that. A few things worth noting. This does not have any production, this ship. So no assemblers, no refineries, there's no safe zone. Doesn't really need that either. And it does have O2H2 production, just one, and an oxygen tank. Does not have a hydrogen tank because it's not using any hydrogen for fuel. The last thing I want to add is that this does not have a jump drive, so this is a vehicle that would be for station defense, or maybe you detach it to another ship or your base or whatever, and then when you jump to a new location, this is just a local defense platform, so cool. Now let's launch these rocket launchers. That's what I've been waiting for this whole time. I gotta go somewhere where I'm not gonna hit anything, because they're gonna go in every direction, I feel like. Look at this. That is a lot of rocket. Alright. Let's see. I can turn off ones. Oh wait, that just shoots them. Okay, so number 2 shoots forwards. I didn't even realize I had forwards rocket launchers. Where are those? Oh, there's one right on the front. Okay. Number 2 shoots forwards, number 3 shoots left, 4 shoots right, 5 shoots up, 6 shoots down. Or you can just go crazy and you can just launch them all. I kind of like that. It might not be practical, but it's fun. And if you're having fun in the game, then you're doing it right. Okay, let's move on to our second to last ship. And that brings us to the Jacqueline, which was designed by Salem VFM. According to the workshop page, this is a space outpost defense vessel, so it does not have a jump drive and it is not capable of flying in gravity appropriately. It also trades acceleration, range, and armor in favor of gyroscopes and raw firepower, so I'm expecting this to whip around really nicely and have lots of guns. According to the workshop, it does have at least one of every kind of large grid fixed weapon and turret. We will see if that is true. Before we do that, let's check its stats though. Jacqueline is 16,260 PCU and a total of 947 blocks. It also weighs in at around 1.5 million kilograms. This vehicle is made mostly out of light armor. The majority of the back of this vehicle is light armor. There might be some heavy armor here and there, but I haven't found it. The front portions here, these like ram bars, which I think look really cool, are heavy armor though. You can see it starts right about here. Oh, it's still light armor. Here we go. Heavy armor starts at the half blocks, and then it does wrap all the way around here. For guns, let's break this down. Start with forwards-facing guns. The Jacqueline has 2 forwards-facing railguns right underneath here with this nicely fortified camera, though it worries me that if that blows up, the camera is also gone. But it's not going to get shot down from the front as easily. We got the railguns. We have 2 artillery cannons facing forwards, and we have 6 rocket launchers, 3 on this side and 3 mirrored, of course, on the other side. For non-forwards facing static guns, we also have 2 artillery cannons facing either side, 2 to the right and 2 to the left. Now we come to the fun part, turrets. This ship has 6 artillery turrets, 3 on top, ramped up nicely just like so, and then 3 on the bottom, 1 in front, and 2 facing backwards. It then has 4 of these Gatling turrets, 2 on the bottom, 2 very similarly on top. It has 1 of the rocket launcher turrets, and it has 2 of the interior turrets. Now, I did not see on this vehicle anywhere an assault cannon turret. So it definitely doesn't have every type of gun, but it has almost every type of gun in the game. That's in the vanilla game at least. So that is pretty darn cool. Just want to look around the outside a little bit more here. It is quite a bit of firepower. This is much more my style of ship, where it is just a gunboat, it looks like. It looks like it's packed really neatly with all of the blocks, and I'm guessing it does not have hardly any interior space. Now, this is a very nice looking vehicle. I think this has got to be top 3 for nicest looking ones in this competition so far, and I think it might be my favorite. A little bit biased. I just love the way this whole thing turned out. The color scheme is really nice. The ram bars are kind of cool, and it is like this very packed look. where it's dense with functional blocks, which is just something that I like. Everyone's got different tastes, but I do really like that. But at the same time, it looks good. It looks very functional, but also pretty darn cool. All right, I'm gonna go in the inside now. We've got this little room here. This is an airlock. Actually, we'll do it the way you're supposed to do it. These are like semi-automatic airlocks. So you walk in, press the button, and it does a whole little cycle. And then when you walk far enough away from that door, it will close that door automatically for you. On the inside, we've got a little programming room. This one's running a salvo script, it looks like. And then you've got your suit. I thought that was going to be a room, but I'm not surprised. This is just a reactor back here. Let's flip our lights off. Oh wow, this is dark. I think those lights need to be turned up a little, but other than that, great. 6 cryo sleeps, which is quite a few for how small this ship is. But hey, you're either manning the guns, right? Or you're sleeping. That's what you're here to be doing. We've got a little HUD thing up there too. So this is the main control seat. I really do like the way the ship looks. Oh, it's so cool. All right, before I push buttons and start shooting all sorts of guns in directions I shouldn't be shooting them, you can see I already did that. I blasted a hole in that ship over there because I shot the side cannons accidentally. We need to make a copy of this and fly it around a little bit. Okay, we have our copy. Let's drive a little bit forwards. Honestly, the thrust on this is not terrible. It is going to drift hard forwards, but the acceleration forwards to get going that way is not bad at all. Shoot the railguns. Yeah, that feels pretty good. I always like when the camera's like right in between them so you can watch the whole thing. Alright, what is number 1? Number 1 fires the forwards guns. Number 2 fires the left guns. 3 fires the right guns. Thank gosh I was far enough forwards. And 6, oh, there's the salvo script. Look at that. That's a thing of beauty. Dang. That is a crazy amount of rockets constantly being fired. There's pretty much always a rocket going off. I can't imagine how fast you would go through those things. Pretty cool though. I'm going to turn those back off. I kind of worry that if you're actually flying around and shooting those, they're going to smack the front of your ship. We'll see. We'll try it. Yeah. See, you can spin around really fast in this vehicle. I don't recommend doing it while firing rockets though, because they're far enough back that like half of them are just going to hit your ram bars. That's more of a I'm going to finish off a ship kind of thing. So you disable them with your big guns, and then once they're disabled, you can come up and you can, you know, threaten them with 4 trillion rockets if you want. Or finish them off, if you're into that kind of thing. I do like that. Not something you would actually do while fighting somebody, though. I don't think. All the other guns should work just fine while you're just flying around. I must say this ship does live up to my expectations and how fast you can spin around with it. That is certainly cool. And the acceleration is, honestly, feels really nice. The ship feels nimble. I would be very happy flying this around in a situation where I'm trying to defend a station or something. Like, these are nimble enough that I could see a whole bunch of them just like zipping around and doing what they do, putting out a lot of firepower as advertised. 6 artillery cannons is going to do a whole lot of damage to basically any grid. And then add in the fact that you're fairly nimble, So you're hard to hit, and you have 2 railguns. I think this is a pretty darn good vehicle. I want to shoot something, but will be nice. All right. Enough test driving this. If I haven't mentioned yet, it does not have any production. It does not have a safe zone. It does not have a jump drive. It has a single large reactor and a whole bunch of distributed batteries, which is just fine. And it does have O2H2 production. It has 10 of them, actually, which is kind of crazy. I guess they're just using that instead of piping, which is understandable. It's more efficient. But they have 2 large hydrogen tanks, 2 small hydrogen tanks, 2 small, or the only size oxygen tanks, I guess. So it is a fairly well-rounded vehicle. It is just made for space station defense. If there is one thing I'm going to nitpick on this, it is going to be that there's no respawn point once again. And I feel a little bit bad about that. But I picked on another ship because of it, so I'm going to point it out on this one as well. There is no survival kit, and there is no medical station. So if you do die, you're going to be flying back. Last, but certainly not least, we have the Ka-tarn class light cruiser. This was designed by Panzer VI Boy. The stats are, it is 19,640 PCU, 2,604 blocks, and weighs in at a little over 2 million kilograms. As far as I can tell, this bad boy is light armor through and through. There are, of course, blast doors here and there, and perhaps there's heavy armor in places that I have yet to find, like, for example, right here. So there's a little bit of heavy armor on the front, which is certainly good for defenses. And now that I've seen a little bit, I'm sure there's some elsewhere in critical places, or just in places that it seems reasonable to put it. For armaments, this one has quite a bit on the front here. We've got 4 forward-facing railguns and 4 forwards-facing artillery cannons, all snuck right up in there. For turrets, we have 8 of the artillery guns. I'm a little bit worried about these ones in that they can't really shoot perfectly straight forward simply because they're behind a bunch of stuff. At least the back ones. But as long as you get like a little bit offset, those will be just fine. So we've got 4 of those up top and 4 on the bottom, making 8 artillery guns in total, which is substantial. On the sides here, we have 3 of the assault cannons on either side, so 6 total. And we have 6 Gatling turrets around the ship, 3 stacked up on each side like so. There are no interior turrets on this vehicle, and there are no missile turrets. I think a good place to plop some interior turrets would be, say, right there and right there, just to give yourself a little bit of coverage from people in jetpacks coming in from behind. Don't think that would be a misplaced thing. Even just putting them on the sides here or down there. Some sort of coverage might be nice, but this is obviously a ship that's meant to be pointing at your enemy. There are also 3 cameras. At least 3 cameras, so there's good camera redundancy on aiming your guns, and there's actually more too. Look at this. There's 2 more up top here, so at least 5. If there's 2 more on the bottom, that's just crazy. Oh, there are 2 more on the bottom. These are going to be upside down, but who really cares? So yeah, there's lots of camera redundancy for facing forwards and making sure you can aim that big swath of big guns. I have to say I do like the way that this looks on the outside. Panzer always makes nice looking ships, and this is no exception. And it is stacked in a typical wedge shape, so things are more or less tiered. I think this part could be a little bit better tiered, maybe bring these up a block or something, but pretty good coverage of all the weapons. Let's look at the bottom real quick. We can actually look at it without the lights, just to get the nice glow effect. It does have a nice silhouette, I must say. These big thruster blocks, I think I'd like to see a little more spread out, but this is turning into a critique video, I swear. It's just meant to be a walkthrough. I'm just supposed to be looking at these things, not really saying much about what I think about it, but letting you guys all see it. I can't help myself, though. I end up critiquing things as I go. Let's go inside. I approve of the connector setup here, right underneath. That works wonders with all the vanilla stations. Looks like we got a nice little airlock, and the door did close automatically for me, which is kind of cool. We got another airlock right across on the other side. I do like how spacious this is and functional. Back from the airlocks, we got some lockers and personal quarters. It's pretty nice. Maybe the captain lives there, and the head engineer, I assume, would be on the other side. I have no idea. Making stuff up. Got some guns. That's our first gun rack. And this looks like the central command area. I guess the captain just sits in this chair and waves his arms around, telling people what to do. Pretty typical. Got some control seats. Yep. And yes, all of the forward's cameras on the hotbar there, in case you need them. We got 2 jump drives. We've got a couple large hydrogen tanks. There's only 2 of them on this vehicle. I thought there would be more for how big this vehicle is, but perhaps that's enough. 2 large ones and 2 small ones, if I remember correctly. That is what we got. This is crew quarters. A couple crew live in here. What's on the other side? It is more or less mirrored. That's good. Continuing backwards, we've got kind of a storage area. We've got a kitchen, table. This is a pretty nice interior. Certainly no complaints from me. Got all these spread out cargo as well. What's over here? Ah, a little cryo and medical room. This is the only medical station on the ship. So there's only 1 survival kit and there is no medical room. Just something worth noting. So if that gets shot out, you're not respawning here. Maybe it would be nice to have 1 more, but at least it has 1. Not everyone did that. Maintenance room. Here's your engine and whatnot. I do like the details here. Using all the different types of blocks and all the different rotations. Yep. This is where both of your hydrogen tanks are, right next to your jump drives. Let's take a quick look. There are 2 jump drives. Yep. And tanks. There are 2 large tanks and no small tanks. It's just the 2 large tanks. There's 1 oxygen tank. We saw that in there as well. All right. Let us take this bad boy for a test flight. Feels pretty good. Solid forwards acceleration. The spinning around feels quite nice as well. No complaints out of me on that. It certainly doesn't whip around as fast as the last one we did, but this ship is very comfortable to fly around. And it's got pretty good side thrust. It doesn't drift as much as some of the other ones did. We're not going to take this down to a planet and test it. It does say on the workshop page that it has limited planetary functionality. So I'm going to assume that it can fly with an empty load, at least on Earth-like. Maybe it works on Pertam as well. Kind of hard to say. Let's try out some of these guns. We use our central camera, which is number 3. Four railguns always feels good to fire. And the artillery's fired quite rapidly as well there. Seems like these guns are just firing as often as possible. So instead of having the block weapons on the hotbar, they just have the like block fire on and off, which is an interesting choice. That's not usually what I use, but it does work just fine, I guess. Now I lost track of all my other ships. There they are. Let's fly on over to those. I want to see what kind of damage this 4 railgun thing does. I haven't shot another ship yet today, and I've been just itching to do it this entire time. I like how they all kind of shot in a rotation there. I don't know if that was intended or not, but it was kind of cool. Flip these bad boys on, see what they do. Boom! Nice. Well, friends, that is going to be the end of this walkthrough video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want more content like this, I post all of my highest quality Space Engineers content over on my main YouTube channel. So head over there, check that out. If you want to get involved in future events, also head over to my Discord. Everyone is welcome there. We host building events once a month, and I always do walkthrough videos. Every build that has been submitted has been in a walkthrough video so far. So yours will definitely be in future ones if you want that. It's not necessary though. We're all just out to have a good time, have some fun, and share some inspiration. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.